Hey guys, Shane back with you from Under the Bridge Collectible Cards. So today I'm excited to do my Jaws Relentless Predator deck tech. But I also wanted to do something I've been waiting to do for a while, but haven't really been in the place yet to do it with all the other decks that I've done. So Jaws I created purposely as a Bracket 2 Commander deck. I'm very comfortable playing this in Bracket 2. I can squeak up to Bracket 3 if I have to. That won't be a problem. I'll be perfectly fine doing that as well. The reason why I waited to do the how do you build a commander deck, which is what I'm doing with this Jaws deck tech. I get asked all the time when I'm out playing, how do you build a commander deck? What do you do? I look online and I put all these good cards in, and sometimes it just doesn't work. So basically, I feel personally that most commander games are between bracket 2 to 3. Sometimes they squeak into 4, there's no doubt. I would say 1 and 5 tend to be the lowest percentage of games. You will not see a ton of them. I generally play around a 3 to a 4, but I felt 2 was the best place to start, where a lot of people start that I've noticed playing at my LGS. And so when I built this deck with that in mind of a 2, I really wanted to do a how do you build a commander deck with it. So I just want to start first by saying, obviously, it's Commander. You can play any way you want. This is not meant to be gospel the way I do it. This is just, if it helps people, that's great. If not, throw it out. That's not a problem. So the first thing I will say when you're building a Commander deck, if you're new to Magic, period, definitely get some reps in on MTG Arena. Learn your untap, upkeep, draw steps, all your stuff. Tapping for mana, casting, instant sorcery. Learn all that first, just so you're comfortable. So when you go to your local game night, everyone, you know what you're doing, you know the basics. I also would recommend, if you're just starting, honestly, start with a pre-con. They're really good. You can upgrade 3 or 4 cards in them. They're fine. They're competitive at bracket 1 and 2, and you can have a lot of fun until you get comfortable. I don't think jumping out and spending, because now it would probably cost $300-400 to build a commander deck. I don't recommend jumping out and just dumping $400 or $500 into a commander deck when you don't know what type of player you are, when you don't know what you like. So I think it's important at the beginning, because Magic is not a quick jump into it and get good at it. It is a long process. So I think at the beginning, getting a commander deck you like that's pre-made, maybe doing some upgrades, learning some stuff. There's nothing wrong with that. Playing for a few months with it, finding out what you like to do. And then naturally you'll start to branch off on your own and build your own decks and pick your own commanders and start from scratch. So here with Jaws, the first thing for me when I build a commander deck, I'm very commander focused. Some people do like to have just a generic commander that's really good in the colors so that you can play good stuff from those colors, whether it be black, white, or Teamer, or whatever. Kenrith, the Return King, is a good example. It gives you 5 colors and a lot of different stuff, and it allows you access to all 5 colors. Me personally, and this is not for everyone, when I build a commander deck, it is basically right around the commander. The commander means everything. That is a weakness as well, because as it gets removed, it becomes harder and harder to win, obviously. But I always do have built-in other ways to win in the deck. But definitely my decks all revolve around the commander. And if you feel like playing that way, I think it's the most fun way to play. But there's also some negatives to it. So when you do play around the commander, you always have to add in extra ways to win, or other ideas, or alternate win cons, right? The second thing to start when you're building a commander deck is lands and ramp cannot be overlooked. If you don't have lands, if you don't have ways to cast things, the game's just not fun, and you're sitting there on turn 5 with 3 lands and everybody else is doing stuff, and you're just, even if you start getting lands, you're too far behind. Even in bracket 2, you're too far behind, and it's very difficult to win. So in this deck here, because we're doing a deck tech at the same time, I am running 36 lands. Because it's a bracket 2, there's 30 of them are just islands. Just mountains. 30 mountains, nothing special. And then I am running Valakut Molten Pinnacle, the new one from Avatar, because it's a mono red deck. Temple of the False God. I don't. It's a good very controversial land, but I don't mind it, and it's good in a bracket too. Mines of Moria, because it makes some tokens if I need it to. Urza's Saga, it is a super powerful land. Not a game changer though, because there's 0 game changers in this deck. Great Furnace, and then Forgotten Cave, which is a cycle land, because cycling is a little sub-theme in this deck. Draw and discard. The deck is, I should say right off the top, the deck is Jaws, Relentless Predator. He is a 5/5, trample haste, and when he does damage, he creates blood tokens. He's mono red, and a blood token is, which I have right here, the one from the Jaws Secret Lair. 1, tap and discard a card, and I sacrifice this token, and it draws a card. So that is a rummage effect. And on the bottom of Jaws, whenever a non-creature artifact is sacrificed or destroyed, Jaws deals 1 damage to each opponent. So he's going to make tokens, and when I sacrifice tokens, he does damage. He does have trample and haste, so he does a lot of damage on his own. So I have 36 lands, but when you go into the ramp category, so I have Descent to Avernus, which makes treasures, does damage to everybody. Ruby Medallion, everything costs 1 less if it's red. Commander Sphere, I don't normally play, but it's sacrifice it to draw a card, so I can add a color, sack it, draw a card, Jaws does damage. So it really does fit in this deck, and it's bracket 2, so I'm keeping it slower. Arcane Signet, Thought Vessel, Felwar Stone, Wayfarer's Bauble, Fire Diamond, Mindstone, Assault Monolith, which will go infinite with Forsaken Monument, which isn't in yet, and that is there as a slow way to go infinite to end the game. Koth, which does search for a mountain, so I consider it ramp. Solemn Simulacrum, obviously great ramp, especially in bracket 2. Sol Ring, Radiant Lotus, and Krark Clan Ironworks. Now, you add 36 lands, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15. So, 50 cards in my deck are land or ramp. That is usually, I like to sit, if it's not a landfall deck, I'm sitting up at that 45 to 50 when you add lands and ramp. That's just how I always build my decks. I don't like getting mana screwed, and it's really important to be able to have your lands to be able to play your cards. Now, second thing when I build my decks, card draw is so important to me. All my decks draw cards. That's just the way I do things. You have to be able to get through your deck. Now, in this deck, with the blood tokens, I can just pay 1, draw and discard, which is fine. I also have, right now I'm running a Howling Mine in testing, so that's going to speed the game up for everybody. We have the Cathartic Reunion from the Jaws Secret Lair. Seize the Spotlight. People are either going to let me draw or I'm going to create treasure, so I can either ramp or draw. This shouldn't be in there. That's a ramp card. So that goes over in the ramp pile, but that's a Strike It Rich. Light Up the Stage. Impulse Draw. Exile the top 2, so it's like draw. Faithless Looting. Another draw discard. Wheel of Misfortune. Draw discard. Brass's Tunnel Grinder. More draw. Unexpected Windfall. More draw and a bit of ramp. And Demand Answers. More draw and discard. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then you add in, because I'm doing draw discard, Monument to Endurance. So when I discard, I can, once a turn, I can draw a card. Another way to draw cards. So drawing is super important. You need to be able to get through the cards in your deck to get to ways to win the game. Now, another thing when I'm building a commander deck, a lot of people ask me, you have to be able to win the game. So if you can do it through combat damage, that's probably the most fun way, and that's fine. You can do it through commander damage, that's fine too. But one way to win, if you can only win through combat damage, it's harder to win because people know that, they wipe your board. Then how are you going to do it? So I can win with Jaws on his own because I do have Doc Ock's Tentacles to pump him up, Lost GT, Commander's Plate in this deck, and the Tarian Soul Cleaver. So all that puts 1/1 counters or pumps up Jaws. So he can do enough damage to kill someone with commander damage. That's not a problem. Also, you'll see in my creatures, we've got Extruder. So I probably won't pay the Echo, but I sacrifice an artifact. I'll have lots of blood. Sacrifice an artifact, put a 1/1 counter on Jaws or another creature. Jaws pings. Swashbuckler makes a treasure. If I sacrifice a treasure, I can give Jaws double strike or another creature. Audacious Resapers allows me to sacrifice a blood and then get a different artifact from my deck, hopefully a better one. Huge card in this deck, Arcbound Ravager. I can sacrifice all my blood, put 1/1 counters on him. He's modular. When he dies, I can move the counters onto Jaws or another big creature. Crime Novelist, massive in this deck. So when I say you need a way to win, this could do it. So whenever I sacrifice an artifact, I put a 1/1 counter on Crime Novelist and I add a red. So if I pay 1, discard a card, sacrifice a blood, Jaws does a damage, he pings, and then I get a red back. If I have 10 blood, I can do that 10 times in a row. That's 10 damage. And you'll see I could easily turn that 10 into 30 later on. Atog, another sacrifice outlet for artifacts, and that gets pumped up as well. Charming Scoundrel has haste, can ramp me, or I draw and discard, so that plays into my ramp and the draw and discard. Another way to win the game. Depth Shaker Titan turns all my bloods. If I'm stuck, if Jaws is too expensive to cast, turns all my bloods into 3/3. They get haste, melee. Another way I can win the game through combat damage. So it's not just Jaws. Now you can see I can win with all my blood sitting there. If I have 10, it wouldn't be hard to have 10, 15, 20 blood sitting there with Jaws. Giggling Skitter Spike, another way to win the game. I can move the counters over to him with Modular or the Soul Cleaver, pump him up whenever he attacks, blocks, or becomes a target of a spell. He does whatever his power is to each opponent, as well as he's indestructible. Ragavan is in the deck because it's red. I play, if you've watched any of my videos, I own like 12 Ragavans. I play Ragavan in every red deck. Love this card. Ramps me. It's mainly just for ramp, but I love Ragavan. And Inti, basically discard a card. It gets exiled. It's impulse draw. It also puts more counters on Jaws or Giggling Skitter Spike or whatever. You'll see soon more cards for that. So now we're going into Mind Crank. Whenever opponents are dealt damage, they mill a card. Another way to win. Very slow, but it's another way to win, and it's super annoying. Glenhorn. Whenever I discard a card, it deals 1 damage to each opponent. Dragonspark Reactor. Whenever it or another artifact enters the battlefield, I put a charge counter on it. So when I make 6 bloods, I put 6 charge counters on it. I can sacrifice it when it has 30 charge counts on it. It deals damage equal to the charge counters to target player, and that much damage to 1 creature. So this on its own can eliminate a player. And then we have Reckless Fireweaver, pings like Jaws does, and Wefstalker Ardent, which pings like Jaws does. So there's another way to win the game, not just combat damage. Now we can just go with ping damage. But because I like the idea of the ping damage, Walking Ballista, as if I was telling you about with Forsaken Monument, if I go infinite with Walking Ballista or have crazy amounts of mana with Radiant Lotus, like the Radiant Lotus, I can put a bunch of counters on Walking Ballista and win that way as well. So another win condition. But I have Fated Firepower. So if I get a bunch of mana, Fated Firepower, I can bring it in with 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever amount of counters. And whenever Jaws or any one of those pingers deals 1 damage, they deal that plus the number of counters on it. So it could be 1, 5, 6, 7 damage. So every time I sack an artifact or an artifact enters, it's doing 5 and 6 damage. Another way to win the game. Aether Grid. Well, I can tap 2 of those artifacts that I'm not using to deal a damage to any target. Another way to remove creatures or do things with my artifacts and all the blood to deal damage. Crackle with Power. I sack a bunch of stuff to Radiant Lotus, or I make infinite mana. If I crackle with Power, it deals 5 times X damage to up to X targets. So if I easily make 16, 17, 18, 20 mana, infinite mana, I can literally Crackle with Fire, Crackle with Power, one shot, all my opponents out of the game. And then Odger Axonal, again, I can put counters on him, or even if I have 0 counters on him, Jaws' 1 ping now does 4. So I only have to sacrifice 10, only 10 artifacts have to be sacrificed or destroyed. And I do 40 damage and win the game. So when I build a commander deck, and a lot of people ask me when I'm building it, you have to have different ways to win. You can't let people lock in on one way to win. So even if Jaws does die, and Jaws is going to die a lot, there is no doubt about it. I know he's going to die because the deck is revolved around him and the blood tokens. So I have to have other ways to win in the deck. And I tell that to people all the time. Now, the only place where I'm not showing you a true way I build is removal. This is mono red, and it's very difficult removal in mono red. Right now, I have this card, which I think is ridiculously amazing in the new set. The Lask Agni Kai. If I say that wrong, I apologize. I'm not a huge Avatar guy. Target creature fights target creature an opponent controls. If the creature an opponent controls was dealt excess damage, I add that much red. And then I don't lose red when steps and phases end. Great removal spell, and it's a bit of ramp too in there, so I really like that spell. Reckless Endeavor, one of my favorite. Board wipe, roll 2d12s, deal damage from one of them, make treasures from the other. Abrade, destroy an artifact, deal 3 damage, plus it's the Jaws art, so it's going to be in here. Vandal Blast, great to overload, slow people down, destroy important artifacts. Chaos Warp, still probably one of the best red spells out there. And Blasphemous Act, red staple. Now, I am bracket 2, so I have kept it down. Normally, I do like 10 to 12 pieces of interaction. So I have kept the number down because I'm in bracket 2 and I want people to battle a little more. But I did add in this deck. So I have Bolt Bend, Redirect Lightning, and Will's Reversal. These are all protection spells, all allows me to protect Jaws. Change the target of a instant or sorcery that's targeting him to something else. It's not necessarily interaction in the way of destroying other people's stuff, but I do have extra interaction to protect Jaws in this bracket 2 deck. As well as I can also do damage with Valakut, I meant to say. So that is the Jaws deck. 1 empty card slot, that's going to be for Forsaken Monument when it comes in. So I've told you guys about card draw, how important it is. Lands and ramp, how important it is. If you like to play around your commander, how important it is. And also we talked about having alternate ways to win the game. Now, the last thing I'm going to say is don't worry if you have to, change the deck around or make alterations. Happens all the time. I put Lost GT in here. It should probably be Nettle Cyst, for example, but I want to try the Lost GT. You're never going to I've never built a deck anyway. I shouldn't say you're never, but I've never built a deck and then all of a sudden built it in the first iteration, played it, and it's perfect. I've never done that. I always make multiple changes to all my decks. There's cards that should be in there that aren't. There's cards that you didn't think about. There's cards you didn't know about. Magic has so many, so I wouldn't worry about that. But it is important to not be... You have to play them, you have to learn them, and don't give up on them right away either. So I see a lot of people that have built a deck, played it 2 or 3 times. Oh, it's not working. You can't know in Commander if your deck works in the first 2 or 3 times. It's just not possible. It's 100 cards. You can't draw through it. So it's just not always that easy. So try and get a few games in with the deck you build before you give up on it. And again, it's not one of those things where it's like, oh, it didn't work. I don't know what I'm doing. Things have to be changed. Things have to be tweaked. Any comments, questions you have, be awesome to hear from you. And I will let you guys know how this deck goes. I'm super excited for it. And also remember, so this is bracket 2. So if you're sitting there saying, oh, you could have put in a Jessica's Will, which I play in every red deck. I purposely didn't put any game changers in this deck. I know there are some more powerful cards I could have put. There's a bunch more 2 removal spells and exile effects that I could have put in there. I chose to keep it at this so it can really play with everybody. And that's another thing too. You have to decide where, eventually, as you become a more experienced Commander player, you have to decide where you want to play. What level, where you're comfortable, where you like. I have played anywhere from 2 to 5. I've played CEDH. I enjoy it sometimes. I enjoy the stacks and the interaction, but the games tend to be 5-10 minutes, then you have to shuffle up. I don't love it. I don't mind it, but I've played, the only place I haven't played is like the janky level 1 decks where it's mostly just goofy and like all my decks have a chair in it. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Everyone plays their own game. It's just, that's just not somewhere I've played, but I've played everywhere from pre-con in the 2 area all the way up to 5. And I prefer to generally play around between the 2 and the 4 bracket. So that's just where I like to play. I think that's where most of the games are. Easiest to walk into a place and play. Everybody's different. I know people that love CEDH and that's all they want to play. That's perfectly fine too. So that's another thing. Make sure you eventually, as you get more experience, you have to decide where you want to play. And then when you decide what level and the area and the bracket you want to play in, then you can build your decks based on that. Anyways, guys, visit the shop, underthebridgecollectibles.com. We're going to be at a card show in Markham next weekend if you're in the Ontario area. And yeah, enjoy. I hope you enjoyed the deck tech. I'm super excited about this deck. I was excited from the second it was announced and I ordered it from the Secret Lair. I was super happy to grab it. Lucky I didn't get stuck out of line like a lot of people did. And we will talk to you soon.